This didn't arrive with a drum roll. It may be one of the biggest regeneration moves the UK has made in years. Because while political attention was elsewhere, a much quieter announcement began taking shape. One aimed not at headline cities, but at the places that usually sit outside the spotlight altogether. The UK government unveiled Pride in Place, a £5 billion investment programme spread over 10 years, targeting 339 overlooked neighbourhoods across England, Scotland and Wales. This is not a short-term fund, not a competitive scramble, but a long-run commitment to communities that have experienced decades of underinvestment. The promise is scale and patience. Most areas will be eligible for up to £20 million each, released gradually, designed to sit in the neighbourhoods long enough to actually change them. At that scale, this isn't a grant, it's an attempt to reset how regeneration works. And the most radical part isn't the money, it's who gets control of it. This time, the decisions aren't being made behind closed doors. Instead of projects arriving fully formed, authority is being pushed down into neighbourhoods that are usually consulted last, if at all. Every funded area must create a neighbourhood board, bringing together local residents, community groups, businesses and local council. These boards will decide priorities, not just advising, but actively shaping what gets funded, whether that's a high street revival, a park upgrade, a youth hub, or a community centre. Decisions are meant to come from the lived experience, rather than distant policy templates. It's a deliberate shift away from competitive bidding towards community-led planning. That changes regeneration from something done to communities to something built with them. But to understand why this matters, you have to look at what the money is actually for. This fund isn't chasing prestige projects. It's aimed at the slow erosion of everyday places, the kind of decline that rarely makes headlines but shapes daily life. Pride in Place is deliberately broad. Funding can support high street regeneration, reopening empty shops, improving lighting, paving and public spaces. It can refurbish or create community centres, youth hubs, libraries and cultural venues. This can restore parks, playgrounds, sports facilities and safer walking and cycling routes. Crucially, boards can fund activities and services, not just buildings, recognising that community life can't be rebuilt with just bricks alone. That focus reframes regeneration as quality of life, not just economic output, and it explains why the areas being targeted look different from the past schemes. These aren't the usual regeneration favourites. They're places caught between decline and opportunity, close enough to be ignored, far enough to be forgotten. The programme spans former industrial neighbourhoods, inner city estates, coastal towns and large suburban housing estates, with rural and island communities, with declining services. These are areas that don't fit neat funding boxes, not derelict enough for emergency support, not thriving enough to attract private investment. Pride in Place explicitly targets that middle ground, acknowledging that long-term neglect often happens quietly, over generations. Naming overlooked as a category is an admission. Neglect isn't accidental. Nowhere is this more visible than in how the funding breaks down in Scotland. Scotland's share makes the scale tangible, because once the national numbers are stripped back, the story becomes about real places and real streets. In Scotland, the government confirmed up to 280 million shared across 14 neighbourhoods in 12 local authority areas, with funding started from April 2026. Areas named include Castlemilk, Springburn and Slight Hill in Glasgow, Niddry and Bingham in Edinburgh, Meath Hill and Buckhaven in Fife, North West and East Sutherland in the Highlands, Stornoway in Hamilton Town Centre, the 3 towns in the Shire and communities across Aberdeen, Falkirk, West Lothian and Ayrshire. Each could receive up to £20 million over a decade. This isn't just symbolic funding, it's long-term intervention, neighbourhood by neighbourhood. But scale alone doesn't guarantee success. 10 years of funding sounds reassuring until delivery begins, because long timelines can stabilise communities or quietly dilute momentum. Pride in Place has 2 strands: A main funding support around 244 neighbourhoods with long-term investment, and a £150 million impact fund offering a one-off capital funding to roughly 95 places for immediate public space improvements. Neighbourhood boards must be in place by mid-2026, with funding released after plans are approved. The challenge won't be money, but governance, capacity, accountability, and whether local leadership is supported or overstretched. This is less of a spending test and more of a systems test. And that brings us to what Pride in Place really represents. The £5 billion has been allocated, the neighbourhoods have been named, and communities across the UK are being asked a rare question. What would you fix if you had the power to decide? This question, boards will form, plans will emerge, and expectations will rise. And over the next decade, Pride in Place will be judged not by announcements, but by whether people feel safer, prouder, and more connected to where they live. Because if this works, it could redefine how the UK invests in communities. And if it doesn't work, the consequences will last just as long, and that's where the next chapter begins. If you enjoyed this video and you want me to cover topics just like this, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to my channel, and comment your thoughts on this in the comments below.